Lisa Sherman. I'm the CEO of Ellementa. And Lisa, you are smiling, and I'm thinking that you're laughing at me for doing my little radio voice. But welcome, everybody. This is a wellness webinar for women. I love alliteration, as you can tell. I'm doing these every Sunday at noon Pacific time and every Wednesday at noon Pacific time as my way of staying sane and learning, connecting with amazing women who are experts and authors, and sharing the information with others, sharing the knowledge and the conversations with others. That's my medicine. So I want to let you know what's coming up on Wednesday, May 20th, again, 12 p.m. PT, 3 p.m. Eastern time. I have props. So these are CBD topicals that I have been testing over the course of the last number of months. So I am one of the testers for our website, Ellementa.com, where we review CBD and cannabis products. I'm the CBD tester. On May 20th at noon Pacific time, I'm going to be talking about these different CBD topicals that I've actually tried, and I'll let you know how they work. And I have arthritis in my neck and in my hips, and I have had 2 frozen shoulders, so I have some shoulder pain, and I'll let you know which ones are really relieving that. And then on the 24th, Sunday, oh, the places you'll go, oh. So you might be familiar with the Dr. Seuss book, The Places. This one's not that. This is talking about women's orgasms in Dr. Seuss rhyme. Yeah, and that's with author Nicole Hodges. Then on the 27th of May, Mary Jane Gibson from Weed and Grub podcast, she's also an actress. She is going to be talking about women and the cannabis culture. Then on the 31st of May, Roxanne Darling is going to be talking about avoiding the blame game. She's a relationship coach. She has a lot of good advice about how to work with and communicate with your partner, which Lisa, I think we're going to be talking a little bit about later on. And then on the 3rd of June, Crohn's disease and cannabis. Katie Stem from Peak Extracts is going to talk about her personal experience using cannabis for Crohn's disease. And then on the 7th, Melody Moezi has written an amazing book called The Rumi Prescriptions. I'm in the middle of it right now. And she's going to be talking about that book and about women's mental health and her own mental health experiences. So great topics coming up. I'm excited. But right now we are here with Lisa Davis, and you have 3 letters at the end of your name.
Yes. Masters of Public Health, MPH.
MPH.
Not miles per hour. A lot of people will be like, what? And I'm like, no.
Or it could be. It could be. So Lisa,
yes,
welcome. I'm so glad to have you. Just recently I was recording with you on your podcast, so that was a lot of fun. So I'm just very much looking forward to this conversation. And I never read a bio. I feel like it's just a little bit too formal. So could you let everyone know a little bit about your background?
Sure. So like I mentioned, I have a master's in public health. I got interested in healthy living as a teen. In the book, my book, Clean Eating, Dirty Sex, there's a memoir portion. And so I share a lot about that in terms of how I got interested in health and how my mom's health. She had these, back then it was in the 80s, these mystery illnesses. And she got covered head to toe rashes, and she lost a bunch of weight. And even before that, she had some botched knee surgeries and was in chronic pain. And it was just a disaster. It was really sad. And then she died in 1995 of ovarian cancer. So I learned at an early age how important health is. So not only did I want to improve my own health, but I wanted to improve other people's health. So I knew that I wanted to work in the health field, and I love people. I love learning things. I love teaching things. So I knew that I wanted to be an educator in health education.
Which is great. So I hear you about all these different ailments, and my mom also passed away from ovarian cancer.
Oh,
really mostly from, I would say, the chemo.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, really, really rough. So I do know the importance of nutrition. My sister's a naturopathic physician.
Oh,
So I've
cool.
learned a whole lot about the importance of what we put into our bodies, including the foods and drinks that we do. So this is going to be quite an interesting conversation because it's never occurred to me, other than the concept of aphrodisiac foods like dark chocolate. It's never really occurred to me to think of the food we eat for our own sexual wellness.
Right.
And we've had a lot of different experts on talking about sexual wellness, more in the cannabis or CBD front, but I'm expanding our topics here to be about general wellness. So I'm really interested in hearing about how food fits in. I would actually like you to start on the personal side. You said the book is part memoir. Can you share some specifics that are in the book about your past, and then what led you to be thinking about food and then writing this book?
Well, I grew up, I always felt like a loser. I was really skinny, like to the point where people were like, are you anorexic? You look sick. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm eating peanut butter sandwiches and I'm trying to gain weight. I just was awkward. My family life was tough, and we lived in a neighborhood. We were Jews, we are Jews, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism. It was just like a whole mix of things that did not go well for me growing up. And so my confidence was just really bad. I had really low self-esteem. And so I ended up, once I hit puberty at like 18, I'm not exaggerating. I had like the body of a teenage boy till I was like, okay, 17. Then when I finally did develop and I went away to college, I got more confidence. Guys started being interested in me when they never would give me the time of day. And so I started using sex in a way that was unhealthy to make myself feel better. So I wouldn't, there's a line, are you a sex addict? I definitely had, I would say, sex and love addiction issues. I think it was more just, if he has sex with me, that means I'm special, and it takes me out of my body, makes me feel better. I mean, it's like drugs, gambling, food, whatever it is. So I wanted to do a book where I could share stories that I think are very relatable. Not that all, some people turn to sex, some people turn to other things. Some people just get help that they need, that I ended up getting later in life. But for me, I feel like if you can share those experiences, and also I used to eat a tremendous amount of junk food because I was trying to gain weight, and didn't work. Ended up, now I have all kinds of food sensitivities, and I have a thyroid issue. So it kind of backfired. So I started getting healthy. I would say around college age, I started to really look at what I was eating. I was unfortunately still engaging in unhealthy sexual behaviors, but so it was kind of this weird mixed bag of like, I want to take really good care of myself, but then I still didn't have that self-esteem. So I wanted to do a book that really looked at how can you use food, fitness, communication to improve your sexual health, but also how can you improve your self-esteem as well?
Well, see, I think when we do talk about, and we've had doctors and naturopaths and sex experts or sexperts talking about women's sexual health, there is such a mental component to it.
Definitely.
And a lack of self-esteem can be at the root of a lot of sexual dysfunction. And
Right.
when we talk about, using cannabis, for example, as a sexual enhancement, not even considering how the chemical compounds in cannabis and cannabinoids can enrich your systems and regulate hormones and do all of these really good internal stuff. And then the external stuff, another thing it does is it takes you out of that mental place of negative thought, and it boosts your self-esteem. It relieves some of that tension and can help you better enjoy. So you're getting that benefit of wellness, but you're also getting a better feeling. So food can be incredibly powerful too. I mean, I just want to dive right into the food aspect of this. Give us some examples of some of the foods and the effects that they can have, the foods that you talk about, and how can that be better for you? Clearly, junk food's not good. Clearly, no junk food.
Yeah, forget it. Well, once in a while. Before I get, is it okay if I just mention the title? Because there's a lot of misunderstanding.
Not only mention the title, you have the book in front of you. Thank you. Hold the book up. Thank you. Okay. Clean eating, dirty sex. All right. And the subtitle is, if you could read that.
Sensual Superfoods and Aphrodisiac Practices for Ultimate Sexual Health and Connection. So the first thing is I grew up in a family, aside from the dysfunction, there was a lot of humor at times, and they were really big on wordplay. So to me, clean, dirty, it's so obvious that the book's not about dirty sex, but unfortunately it's not that obvious to other people because it says dirty sex, right? So to me, it's obvious, like, clean and dirty. So I've had a bit of an issue with people kind of getting past that. But once they open it and they see, like, wow, this has really relatable stories, and it has all these foods, and it has all these communication techniques, and it talks about a woman's pleasure and orgasm. And I mean, it unless you think that's dirty, which I hope people don't.
Unfortunately,
our culture is a bit uptight. Yeah.
Yeah, our culture sort of does think that's dirty.
Yeah, unfortunately. But when it comes to the foods, you're really looking at foods that are rich in flavonoids, antioxidants, and nitric oxide. So in your blood vessels, you have endothelial, endothelial tissue lines your blood vessels. And nitric oxide is created from the endothelial tissue. The nitric oxide is what makes your blood vessels dilate. Okay, so this is important for both men and women. So if you are eating the standard American diet, which is basically highly processed food, factory farm meats, most things you get that have like 1 million ingredients in them, and you're like, I can't pronounce this, you want to put it back. So we want to stick to a whole food diet, and I'll get into some examples of that. But what happens when you're eating that standard American diet is you're damaging your endothelial tissue, and then the nitric oxide doesn't get created as easily, and then the blood flow doesn't go where you want it to go for both men and women. So this is important. So nitric oxide is found in beets. Beets are an incredible source. Beets. Yeah, beets.
I love beets.
Really I love beets too. You can also, after, like, if you have a little piece left over, you can like rub it on your lips for like natural lipstick. That's just my daughter and I like to do that. For fun. Beets are great. Another thing that's great is that watermelon is known as natural Viagra because watermelon has something called L-citrulline, and then that will convert. I don't want to get, my husband's like, hey, don't bore everyone with the science, but that will convert to L-arginine, that converts to nitric oxide. So there's it, like with the beet, it's nitrates, but it's not nitrates like nitrosamines, which you find in cured meat. It's a natural occurring thing called the nitrate that converts to nitric oxide. Nuts have a lot of L-arginine in them. That will also convert to nitric oxide. So you want to be eating nuts, beets. You want to have a lot of berries. There's a really great doctor I interviewed for the book. I interviewed over 50 health experts for the book, from functional medicine doctors, sexologists, psychologists, exercise physiologists, nutritionists. And Dr. Joel Kahn said he tells his patients that, or he calls strawberries screwberries and blowberries, blueberries blowberries, because they're potent and they're full of antioxidants and flavonoids. So going back into those, flavonoids are basically phytonutrients. They're basically plant chemicals found in fruits and vegetables. The flavonoids are good because they help keep your blood vessels more flexible. And again, when you have that atherosclerosis and everything's getting stiff, and then you get the nitric oxide that isn't being produced because you've eaten a bunch of crap, then it really is, not helpful. And then the other thing is the antioxidants. They help clean up the free radicals in your body. We've all heard this in our cells. They keep things clean. Think of them as like a mop to get rid of the unstable atoms in your body, in your cells.
The antioxidants.
Right. Thank you. The antioxidants clean up the free radicals, which are the unstable atoms. I'm like,
you got it. Yeah. I'm just clarifying. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so then you also want to eat things that have healthy fats. Healthy fats are huge because you need healthy fats to make your hormones produce. And we're looking at sex hormones, so you need healthy fats. So nuts, seeds, avocados. I'm big on avocado oil. I love avocado oil. Yeah. Dark chocolate has the flavonoids, the antioxidants, and the healthy fat. Try to get 70%. And then, of course, leafy greens. I have to say leafy greens. Those have a lot of antioxidants and flavonoids.
But dark leafy greens, right?
Dark leafy greens, yes. Okay. And then also, I do eat meat. I'm a big fan of grass-fed meat. So grass-fed beef has zinc, which is really important. It also has magnesium, which is important. That helps with testosterone production, which both men and women need. So sweet potatoes are also great. I think what it comes down to is really sticking to the perimeter aisles of the grocery store, right, as much as you can, avoiding the
Right.
middle section.
That's a good point. I've never thought of that. All the stuff that's good for you is out of the perimeter.
Yeah,
And all the overly processed packaged foods with unpronounceables is in the middle. I had never thought of that before.
Yeah. So it's a good idea, especially if you don't have a health food store near you. I mean, if you can, and I know they can be expensive, but if you can afford to support, especially now with everything going on, there's a local health food store a few towns up I try to go to. And, and the other thing too is, and I know cost is an issue. So I usually tell people, if you go in the store, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get some produce. There's the clean 15, there's a dirty dozen, that's in the book. I don't think you have to get everything organic. It's too expensive. I don't. So you get that list. You can also find that on the Environmental Working Group website. You can buy grains in bulk. You can buy beans in bulk, and then save the money for the grass-fed meat and just eat meat less often, right? So I think that it is a tricky time. I know that it's hard. I'm not saying it's not, but if you can try to do things that way, it does help.
So for those of you who are watching the recording of this afterwards, who knows at what point you're going to be watching it, and who knows what state we're going to be in as a nation and as a world. At the moment, when we're recording this, a lot of us are still sheltering at home, not actually physically going into stores.
Right.
And we're using an app called Instacart, and they're shopping at the local Safeway for us. So because everyone in the household here is at risk. So it is a different kind of shopping.
Right. That's true.
So I can't see the aisles at the moment, but I know what you're talking about. Really, I go into the fruits and vegetable portion of my app, the category of my app, to start there. And I do think that the stress that we're undergoing right now during these times, food can also help. Good food, whole food can also relieve that. But speaking of processed foods, which we had mentioned a few moments ago, there's a question from Kimberly who was asking about canned beets. So canned foods, you mentioned yams. What if I get it in a can? Beets, what if I get those in a can? And then maybe even, I like pickled beets. I like them in a jar. I like pickled and fermented foods.
Those are so good for you.
Yeah. Can you talk about the differences though? Because a lot of people, for the convenience, and especially now as we're all sort of shopping infrequently, will get canned goods because they last.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the thing with canned goods and frozen vegetables as well, especially with frozen, they flash freeze them, which means they pick them at the ripest and then they freeze them right away. So in some cases, they can be better than fresh that have been sitting on the shelves for weeks, right? Because you don't know how long things have been sitting. Canned food is the same way. So if you can get your beets canned, your yams canned, I love olives. I mean, I eat so many cans of olives. It's ridiculous, which is also another great source of fat, healthy fat. So I definitely say that it's a good thing to do. And especially now, I think I'm trying to buy more canned food right now because you can come home and you can clean wash the cans, and it's easier. With fresh produce, I'm like, wait, do I wash the bag? It's very overwhelming.
It is. So, and then pickled and fermented. Do you have any opinion about?
That's even better because then you're going to get those probiotics, which are so important, right? And those are good as well for your overall flora and your overall health. And especially now with all the stress, we want to build up our immune systems as much as possible. So that's
I think one of the things that we don't talk enough about in our society, meaning the American United States society, our diet, even our friends up in Canada are so much keener on things like holistic and whole foods. When I chose to be gluten-free, which was about 14 years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter, you couldn't find anything gluten-free in the US. I had to mail order everything from Canada. And they have passed laws that don't allow a lot of these preservatives and things there. So the way that we tend to eat here in the States, ignores the fact that our gut has a whole lot to do with our mental health.
Definitely.
And the rest of our physical health.
Yeah, true.
So, all right. Strawberries and blueberries. I have never heard those terms before that you just used about berries.
And raspberries too, blackberries, just berries. And
Just
they're low
berries in
sugar,
general.
too. Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's funny about Canada. My co-host, Andrea Donsky, is from Canada. We do a show, Naturally Savvy. And I definitely want to have you on. She started something on her own called Naturally Morphus, powered by Naturally Savvy, looking at women in midlife. And she's going to love you. So
I am definitely in midlife. I'm like, over
yeah,
that
I see that. In Europe too. And it's the same with, the products we put on our skin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have a whole chapter on skincare in the book. It's really important. And over in Europe, they'll have so many chemicals banned, like thousands, and we'll have like 11. It's really insane.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that though. Since I'm going to be doing this whole thing on topicals, I would love to hear your take on, people don't even realize that the biggest organ in our bodies is actually on our bodies. It's our skin, and that not just what we take in, but what we put on ourselves can be absorbed into our bloodstream and really affect our health. So I would love to hear your take on skin.
Yeah, I used to have a podcast. I really miss doing it with David Pollack, who develops natural skincare products called Beauty Inside Out. And we would not only talk about things you put on your body, but things you put in your body as well. But putting on, you think about it, people go, well, I don't use that much. Okay, so you're going to wash your hair. You're going to use shampoo. You're going to use conditioner. You're going to use a body wash. Then you're going to use your foundation, your blush, your mascara, your eyeliner, your lips, whatever, now naturally, luckily, thank goodness they make natural types nowadays, right? Yeah. But again, they are costly. So for me, I put on makeup today, but 99.9% of the time I'm not wearing makeup. So my makeup will last a while. Although you do want to look at your mascara.
Expiration dates.
Every few months. But people don't realize how many, and even men too, the same thing. It's like shampoo. Maybe they don't use conditioner, but they use maybe some kind of body wash, or then they have aftershave and then shaving cream and then deodorant. There's so many things.
And then that body spray, like that Axe body spray. Is
the worst.
Yeah.
So you want to look at that too. And the reason I put the chapter on skincare in the book is also just because when you feel better in the skin you're in, it makes it easier to feel more sexual and more attractive, I think. I also feel like one of the things that, I had this woman who I grew up with, and she saw the book and she was like, I don't read diet books. And I'm like, this isn't a diet book. I want you to feel good at every size. I'm really into the health at every size movement. I want you to move. I want you to eat well. I want you to feel better. I want you to have better mental health, better communication, and, work on yourself. And that's with the skincare chapter too, right? I just want people to start healthier habits.
Well, talk about some of the things in that skincare chapter. Like, so what should we put on our skin? What shouldn't we put on our skin? Or what is exactly your take on it?
There is if this is a thing, and I'll look, because I don't have them memorized, I hope that's okay.
Yes, you're allowed to look at your book, of course.
Okay. Well, it's funny.
I'm sitting here looking at my notes as well, because by the way, the next thing we're going to talk about is fitness, because you talked about movement. So we'll get to that.
Well, there's a list, and I think you can get this on the environmental working group as well. Okay. There are 10 things that you don't want. So you look at your labels, and I won't get too into this because you can look this up, but parabens, there are methylparabens, ethylparabens, polyparabens, benzylparabens, and PEGs and glycols, usually labeled PEG. Lauryl sulfates, probably people have heard about that, right?
Oh yeah. It's in our toothpaste, it's in our shampoo and conditioners and everything.
And the hard thing too is that we're so used to the lather and the foam, but you got to know that it's still cleaning, even if it doesn't have the lather, right? We need to retrain our brain and get out of the, remember that Fabergé commercial, in the 70s, where that woman was like, tell your friend, and she'll tell
that's herbal essence.
Yeah, that was one more recent.
Or was it Fabergé? Yeah, don't tell two friends, and don't tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Yeah. And it always was like, ooh, the rich lather. That's that, you're right, the herbal essence, which is, I'm sure, not very herbal. Another one is petrochemicals. You don't want to use mineral oil, petroleum, paraffin, synthetic fragrance, synthetic dyes, triphenyllamine, triclosan, and phthalates, which is a pH, THALTES, phthalates.
Phthalates, pH, right, yes.
And then 1,4 dioxin. And again, this is all in the environmental working group, or even more, you get it here. good stories, funny, sad, wonderful.
Well, okay, so all of these things that we don't want to put on our skin, I don't know if you go into this or if you've thought about it or even done any research, but a lot of people, a lot of women are using lubricants. So
there are natural lubricants.
So what would be a natural lubricant?
Woo for Play is a really good one.
Woo
for play.
Okay.
WOO for play. Here's the thing though. It is coconut oil based. It's all natural, but it's gonna, if you have to use a condom, you can't use an oil based.
Can't use oil.
I did find another one. I wish I'll have to sense it. I should have brought it down that I use. I got it at Whole Foods.
Well, did you know I was going to ask you about lube?
No, but I should have known. But yeah, there are natural brands. If you go to Whole Foods, you will find a natural brand. I mean, maybe not now with everything going on, but you will find a natural lubricant there.
And so I was told by my gynecologist, especially as I was entering menopause, like seriously entering menopause, that coconut oil is just a great everyday lubricant and treatment that helps keep your vaginal health going. But you're right. If you are using condoms, you don't want any of that kind of lube.
I had a hysterectomy when I was 48 because I had cantaloupe-sized fibroids. And my mom died of ovarian cancer in her 50s. And so I was like, you know what? I'm already showing premenopausal signs. Let's just take it all out. So, which has been good and bad. Well, it's been great. It's like,
nothing to worry about.
Yes. Yeah.
But you entered into menopause faster.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what I did was I started getting on low dose bioidentical hormones. And I talk about hormones in the book. And again, this is a very individual thing. And I think women need to make their own decisions about it because there's natural things you can do. But for me, if you're just going from having your ovaries to not, for me, I felt like I can't just hit that wall. Right. So I have been taking, but I'm on a low dose and I feel really good. So I think it depends, but I have to tell you, and I mentioned this in the book, because I have a whole chapter on menopause and perimenopause. When I turned 43, it was like a switch went off and I was just mad and irritated and broken out and sweaty. Like, this is not working. So I have some tips in the book for that as well.
Give us a tip. Just give us a tip. Eating well. Okay.
Tip, honestly, is eating well.
And then fitness. Talk about that.
Fitness. Yes, it's very important. You have to get your heart rate going and you also have to build your muscles. Now, if you enjoy lifting weights, that's great. If you enjoy yoga especially is really good. If you enjoy, I do Pilates, I love Pilates. Some women think, I don't know if they still think this, but when I was in fitness, like in the 80s and 90s, people would be like, late 80s, I should say, early 90s. Oh, women don't want to bulk up, blah, blah, blah. If I lift a weight, I don't know if people still think that way, but if you do, just, you want to just keep the weights light, but you want to do some kind of weight bearing because that also helps prevent osteoporosis. So there was some studies though, going back to yoga, and I've seen this for myself. So my husband and I have always kind of had a mismatched libido because mine's always been ridiculously high and his has been normal. But he started doing yoga I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And not only has his body damn, but he's like, come on, honey. I'm like, woo, so it's a little more balanced. Although mine waned a little bit once I did hit the menopause, and that can be expected too, even with the hormones. So I think you have to make sure you have good communication, which is huge. You want to work on any resentment. And another thing that I mentioned in the book that I don't see in a lot is unhealed trauma, because you can eat all the blueberries, you can do all the fitness, you can communicate with your partner. But if you have unhealed trauma, especially around sexual trauma, it's really difficult. And so I urge people to get help, do what they need to do to help themselves, because that can be really tricky. And unfortunately, a lot of women are in that position.
So let's talk a little bit more about communication.
Sure.
Clearly, healing your own trauma, part of that is communicating with yourself.
Right, definitely.
But what kind of communication tips do you have in terms of speaking with your partner and improving your overall sexual wellness, not just your sex life, by communicating with your partner?
Yeah, I think a big thing is you have to catch your partner at the right time, right? So if they had a long day and they just come in from work, and again, before COVID, or even during COVID, and you're immediately like, you know what, hon, I feel like we don't have sex enough, or you don't really know how to do this. You need to like say, look, there's some stuff I need to talk to you about. We need to find a good time. And then you need to use what are called iMessages. Now, when I was a kid, my parents would talk about iMessages. I thought it meant like giving each other like weird looks or something.
Giving them the eye.
Yeah, exactly. What the heck are they talking about? So if you don't know, an iMessage is basically, instead of saying you're a jerk or you're not good in bed, you say, I feel like your pleasure might overtake mine, or I feel like we're not really working well together. Can we talk about it and figure out what's going on? And so then the person isn't on the defensive. The other thing that's really important is active listening, where, so the person says something and you say, I hear that you feel this way. What can we do about that? Or, you know what, right now I'm really overwhelmed and I'm not in a good space to talk about it, but let's set aside some time because I know how important this is to you. I think a lot of miscommunication happens because you just catch them at a bad time. I used to do it with my husband all the time. I'm an extrovert. He's an introvert. He would come home from yoga class or work or whatever, and I'd just be like, blah, 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 and he's like, whereas I need to be that way because I work from home. So I'd be by myself all day. And even though I get to talk to fascinating people, it's something to have him or, this was when my daughter was going to school. Now she's home. But there's something about catching someone at the right time, I think is really important. And really listening. And even if you feel like maybe they're saying something that, kind of, maybe you did do something kind of jerky and you feel bad about it. Sometimes people lash out, right? Because they get embarrassed. But instead, just kind of sit with it. Be like, oh yeah, I did say that. Like the other night, my husband said something to me that I was really hurt. And the next morning, he's like, you know what? I'm just in a bad space and I didn't mean it. I'm really sorry. And I think being able to say you're sorry, and I've done that too, where you kind of just say something and then you're like, oh. And then resentment is a big problem because if you don't communicate, and I talk about that in the book as well, you don't want to have sex with someone you resent. That's not fun. You carry
there's so much tension and weight to that you carry.
Yeah.
And then again, back to what I mentioned at the very beginning with women, really good sex is fully mental. It's what's in our heads. It's how we think about ourselves at any moment. I learned a lesson from my husband, which I still have to remind myself constantly. He said, you know what? You're beautiful in any way because you've got breasts and a great butt. he's like, that's all men are thinking of when they're looking at their wives. They're like, boobs. And I'm sitting here going, stretch mark, cellulite, fatty. Right? And they're like, boobs.
Yeah, that is a good, I know, because I'm struggling with my changing body. I'll be 53 in August. And I'm like, I don't, what is this? Like, even if I make, right? Like, or just, when I sit down, like when I stand up, things are pretty good. And then I sit, right? And then my sides are like, what is stuff just gets looser. And the other day, and I know my husband did do this on purpose, but he was rubbing my back and he's like, what is happening here? I'm like, hun, it's called sagging skin and fat. Just get used to it. But then we start laughing. Like, he doesn't do it to be mean, but he was more like, he was almost confused. Like, what? Because it seems like when you hit 50, at least I've noticed for myself that from late 40s even to early 50s, like there's something going on. And it is a drop in your hormones. And that's why it's so important to work out. I always say to people too, don't believe those creams that say they're going to unsag skin. They're not. You can get toner. That helps.
Yeah.
But I remember there was this cream going around a couple years ago. Number one, it was full of junk, right? And the other thing, the before and after picture was ridiculous. And I've talked to some plastic surgeons and they're like, you can't get that result unless you go under the knife. And that's not something I want to do. I don't want to, but I think women have to be more realistic. And I think we have to be easier on ourselves. Right?
I think that in general, society places a tremendous pressure everywhere we look on looks, on appearance.
Yeah.
People who are famous and successful, they work incredibly hard to look the way they do. And then it's airbrushed and it's fake.
Oh, they all have,
Yeah, so it's not real. And that's also, I think one of the things I wanted to mention before we finished talking about the food piece of it is our daughters.
Yes.
Or even our children. I mean, our sons as well. But statistically speaking, girls have a greater difficulty with their relationship with food. their perceptions of themselves. And you mentioned, at a young age, you were using sex as a way of feeling loved.
Right.
So how do we present to our kids and our daughters, especially, healthy self outlook and esteem, healthy eating, healthy behaviors?
Right.
What would you say to that?
I think one of the things that we cannot do in front of our girls as much as we can is don't look in the mirror and be like, oh my God, geez, I'm getting jowls, or what is that? I say to my daughter, because I'm a size 12, I'm busty, I've got a large rump, I'm curvy, I love it. And she's always like, Mom, I love your curves. I'm like, me too, because I was so skinny. If someone told me that someday I'd be curvy, I'd be like, there's no flipping way. So I'm embracing all this. And she happens to be super thin like I was, although she has a figure. So for her, it's a little, she doesn't have that insecurity of not being developed at all and feeling like she's going to look like a boy forever. But I think the negative self-talk we do, number one, we don't want to do it to ourselves, but when you do it aloud, it's really detrimental to our children. And I think to build them up, and not just on the way they look, but also, oh my God, my daughter's super creative. I mean, she will go write a parody like it's nobody's business. She loves to sing and dance and just have fun. And she's really good at that. So I'm like, wow, you're such a good writer, because she struggles and she has some learning challenges and she struggles in other ways. And so I think whatever's going on with your kid, you have to individualize it to them and really build them up. But gals, we got to stop breaking ourselves down. And I'm guilty of it too. I mean, when I sat down yesterday, I was like, oh my, and then I saw her and I'm like, I'm just, I'm not commenting on my weird skin folds.
So also the other thing too, I think for our partners, regardless, male or female, or any partner in your life, when you're raising children together, I know for one thing, guys, I hate to generalize, but often guys aren't as sensitive to the kinds of words that they're using. And so I know my husband had said to my daughter on numerous occasions, she would say, oh, I'm so skinny, because she had the same thing. She's just super skinny. And he's like, yeah, you're really skinny. And I was like,
yeah.
You're reinforcing her own negative perceptions, or using food as a weapon as opposed to medicine. If we start thinking of our food as medicine, we treat it with a greater reverence and care.
Yeah, I think so too.
So
it's really hard. Oh, I'm sorry. I was sort of leading into the conversation of how do we get our partners on board? And again, I don't want to assume that your partner is male, but how do we get our partners on board? Because it's on board in terms of parenting and how we relate to food around that, on board about communication, on board about eating. How do we possibly change our partner's eating habits to be more in line with what's in your book? Yes, well, I'm really lucky because my husband and I are really compatible in terms of our values, the way we want to raise our daughter. Trust me, there's arguments. He's also super health conscious, so that made it easy. And sometimes I complain he exercises too much. I'm like, you're going on a run again? Can I hang out? But I think, again, it comes back to communication. If there's something that you're seeing them do, you need to say, look, we were raised differently. I need to know what's going on for you because I feel like this isn't working for her, or this isn't working for me, or did you see how she reacted to that? Because sometimes I'll say things and my husband's like, hun, and then he'll say things. I'm like, hun, why did you say that to her? But we can kind of call each other on it. Like yesterday. So she has this long distance boyfriend. He lives in Philadelphia. And he's really bad. They're both high functioning autism. So they're on the spectrum. So the social skills aren't the best. And for him, it's a little hard. So she'll text him and he'll wait like 2 weeks. She'll be like, Mom, he hasn't texted me back. So he texted her back last night. She just sat down with my husband to watch The Flash. And I was like, honey, you should text him back. And he's like, oh, we're just going to watch a show. I'm like, okay, I'll take care of it. And I was supposed to just say, oh, I'm tied up. Well, I ended up texting him like I was her, which is totally ridiculous. But I was like, I know, it's not awful. I can't believe I just admitted that. Now no one's going to buy my book. I'm a hack. No, it wasn't long, but it's just like, I'm good. How are you? Hope things are well. Because he takes so long. I thought I was doing, my husband this morning was like, hun, You can't, she has to learn these things on her own. She's not going to get these social skills. You can't be, I can't believe I just admitted that. Oh my gosh. I hope he doesn't see this. This is terrible. I'm too open. At any rate, the point is that I kind of like, sometimes I feel like because of this, like I have to jump in, I have to help, I have to, he's like, no, she needs to be more independent. You need to, so whatever issue we're working on, it can be complicated. I swear it was only a couple of things though.
We believe you. If anybody has any questions, those of you who are here live, please type them into the chat box and we'll work on getting your questions answered. Kind of going back to the main topic at hand.
Yes, sorry, I kind of...
No.
I mentioned my daughter and I both tested for ADD. I mean, it's like, woo, woo, woo. I apologize.
And it's interesting too, because food can also affect things like ADHD-like symptoms.
True.
It can also contribute to alleviating with the right kinds of foods and the right kind of eating habits. I mean, I always, even just raising, here we go, talk about our kids again. Yeah. But raising a child, we lived in very, very rural Alaska with a lot of limitations in terms of the kinds of foods that we could get a hold of. In terms of fresh foods, for example, was really, really hard to get. We ate a lot of game meat. My husband was a hunter, or is a hunter, and a trapper. So we would eat a lot of game meat. I taught my daughter from a very early age, I said, sugar is poison. It's really bad for you. I feel so terrible that I kind of, but it is. And I said, your sweets are fruits and vegetables. And so she was in kindergarten. And the big thing that the kids always did for any party was a piñata. And I remember the first time we were at school and they had a big celebration and a big piñata and the kids were banging on it and it finally broke and all the candy is everywhere. The kids are screaming and running around and going for the sugar. And she's just standing there looking. And I'm like, honey, go on home. You can get something. Oh no, sugar's poison.
Oh God, I wish I had done that better. I kept her away till around 5 and then she got it and then that was it.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah.
And now she's 15, so.
Yeah, around 9 or 10 years old, she was introduced to junk food and sugar. And then it became a real big issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, back to where we started. Can you wrap it up a little bit with a couple of your favorite tips from the book or favorite things that you have learned about having more overall wellness or sexual wellness with food? And we also didn't mention drink, so maybe throw some of that in.
Yeah, well, water. I mean, that's a big thing. Yeah, you want to drink a lot of water. I know, I don't have mine here. The other thing that I think is really great is there's a whole chapter on motivation and tips and journaling and finding your why. That's one of my favorite things. Dr. Pankaj Vij is an incredible medical doctor with a holistic bent. He's in the Bay Area and he's just phenomenal. He wrote a great book called Turbo Metabolism. I absolutely love him, so you should check him out. And he talked about how important it is to find your why. So if you're, your high school reunion's coming up and you're going to Zoom or you're going to do whatever it is, and you want to look your best, it's not really long lasting. But if you want to play with your grandkids, or like for me, I've always had knee issues. I was hit by a bread truck on my bike when I was in my 20s. I have scar tissue damage. I'm a mess. So I'm always like, what can I do? At this point, it's not, I mean, it's partly aesthetic, but it's more, I want to be functional. I want to feel good. I want to live a long time. So when you can find your why, that really helps. And there's some other great information in that chapter. The other thing is, try to stay away from the standard American diet. I know it's tough. I know especially now with COVID, it's tough. I am, giving people more slack, or not that I'm in charge of, you know what I mean? I try to, when I talk to people, I say, it's a little bit tough. But also like every day I've been eating a big salad, like a huge salad, because it fills me up. You put avocado in it. Make sure you have your good, healthy fat. And, if you can, throw some nuts on it. Do something fun. Get dressing that you like, even if it's higher in calories. Another thing, I'm not big into counting calories at all.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is do some kind of fitness and communication. I also want to mention that this is also a cookbook.
Hold it up again, would you?
Yes.
Because I don't obviously.
I think it's so beautiful. I was so excited.
Wait, hold it up a little higher or a little back. There you go. Okay, just so they can see the strawberry too.
that so cute?
It is a great.
And it wasn't me. This is Skyhorse Publishing. They showed me some different covers, and I like this one best.
Oh, it's
the
great.
first one they had, it was like black, and it had a chili pepper that looked like it exploded, and it was kind of cool, but it looked more cookbookish, which this is. There is over 50 recipes. They're developed by Erin MacDonald. She's the dietitian nutritionist for Clean Eating magazine, and I said, "Oops, sorry." Oh, no, I'm still here. Good. No, my dog is sleeping. No, it's fine. I thought he knocked out the earbuds. He just knocked out the plug. I said, here's a bunch of foods: asparagus, avocados, beets, leafy greens, grass-fed meats, chicken, turkey. Try to get them, pasture raised, etc. Can you create some recipe? And of course, dark chocolate. So she created some fantastic recipes. There's salads, there's main dishes, there's side dishes, there's delicious desserts. The ooey gooey brownies are fabulous, all low sugar in the desserts. And it's just it's a great thing, especially right now. I mean, you're home and you have some time, and in between homeschooling, if you haven't gone off.
If you have time, yeah, exactly.
I know, I'm like, oh God, I have learning differences and she has learning differences. The other day she yelled at me. She's like, Mom, you don't know how to teach math. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to teach math. I'm not a teacher. I'm a health educator. We could talk about health for hours, hon.
Yeah, I think that overall, the one piece of we hadn't talked about is sleep.
Oh, sleep is so important. That's like my religion. Like, what are your religion? Mine is I am a sleeper. No, I go to bed every night between 8:30 and 9, no matter what. So because I know I'm an early riser, plus my dog, I have 2 dogs, and one of my dogs always wakes up around 5:30 to go out. And my husband's already up. He gets up at 4:30 to do yoga and meditate. So he's really dedicated. So I'm up, I let the dogs out. And sometimes I fall back to sleep, sometimes I don't. And what I usually do is I usually listen to podcasts or watch adult shows that I can't watch when my daughters are like, I'll catch
Wait,
up.
what's an adult show?
Like something like Better Call Saul or something where there's...
Oh, okay. A grown-up show. Okay, when you said adult, I was like...
I know, that didn't... I like watching it more. No.
Okay.
No. I meant like a grown-up show. So I usually don't go back to sleep. So if I go to bed by 5:30, that's a good amount of sleep. But I feel like too many people just don't value their sleep, and they don't have good sleep hygiene. So we talk about that in the book. It's so important to sleep. That's going to help your overall health tremendously. So I'm very big on that.
Yeah, I co-wrote a book called The Happy Healthy Nonprofit with Beth Cantor. And the premise was fitness, nutrition, and sleep. Which is the one that affects all? Sleep. If you get better sleep, you can digest and process your foods better. If you get better sleep, you're making better choices. If you get better sleep, you're more motivated to exercise. Sleep is so underrated, especially in our culture, in our society.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And then when you eat well, when you eat whole foods, when you're not carbing up or sugaring up or processing food up, you sleep better.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it really is. I tell people this book, honestly, you could be celibate. It's really a health book with a focus on your sexual health. But if you do all these things, you're just going to feel better.
Yeah, all of your different systems, and especially your brain will benefit from eating like this. And our brain is kind of women's biggest sexual organ, really.
Yeah.
You think about it.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, it's so much about mindset.
Yeah.
It really is so much about mindset. So feeling good and thinking in a good, clear way can definitely improve your sex life.
Yeah. It's so true.
Well, this has been
5 minutes. Really?
I know.
There's beautiful pictures in the book too of all the
show, please.
They're the miso maple glazed rainbow carrots.
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, they did a really, really nice job. There's a recipe with beets. Oh, here's the ooey gooey brownies. These use cashew butter, so it gives it a really creamy, nice texture. Yeah, it's good. I'm really proud of the recipes. I was going to try to develop some, and I'm like, I'm going to leave it to the experts. I'm not a registered dietitian.
Well, it sounds amazing, and I appreciate all of your insights. This has been pretty educational. I'm still stuck on the strawberries and blueberries.
Well, go get a bunch and eat them frozen too. Just that's what just throw them in a smoothie, or even just let them defrost for a little bit. Or
Well, that is a really good tip too. Instead of buying frozen strawberries, if you can get fresh strawberries or fresh berries and then freezing them yourself.
right.
And here's a Martha Stewart tip.
Ooh.
But hold on, I'm thirsty. I had to drink something.
Martha Stewart, that's fun.
Leaving you in suspense. Okay, the Martha Stewart tip on freezing berries. It's so simple and so genius, and it totally works. If you've noticed, sometimes you freeze berries and they're still wet, and then they clump together like a big old lump.
And they get all icy, and they kind of smell funny sometimes if they're in there.
Yeah. So you place them on a tray, a little bit separated, slide the tray into your freezer, freeze them that way first, then pour them into a Ziploc, and now they stay individually frozen.
Oh my gosh. You know what I need though? I need another freezer, because I just cleaned mine out just before COVID. And now because of COVID,
it's super packed. Exactly.
I have no room for a tray. I keep saying, I've got to get another freezer, like put it in the garage or something.
So, but if you're using your berries for a smoothie, for example, then you don't even have to worry about them being separate. I just always love that tip. I remember it from
That's great.
From the 90s or something. It was like this tip. I was like, oh, revelation. But yeah, just stick them into a Ziploc bag. In fact, I take everything from my freezer and everything I can to take them out of the packaging now, because you need more room. It's just super hard to fit everything in during this time.
Yeah.
The other thing, the last thing, I guess, is because right now we are in such a stressful time, food and the food that you're describing and the way of eating that you're describing is so good to reduce stress.
Yes.
And being well nourished, having movement in your life, sleeping well, all of that is great for coping.
Yeah, it's true. It is really difficult. And also, don't beat yourself up when you eat too many cookies, or, I mean, we're under, I think people have to be allowed to, if they're mostly eating well, right, then to have some treats. And I just want to shout out my co-host, Andrea Donsky, on Naturally Savvy. She wrote a great book called Unjunk Your Junk Food. So yeah, it's still cookies, but it's cookies with 7 ingredients, not 155. Or
I just made
avocado
cookies.
oil versus,
Yeah, I made cookies, no flour, peanut butter, oats, a fraction of the sugar that they called for. I mean, they were saying a cup. I used less than a fourth. I mean, and then after I made them, this is the first time I've ever done this. I'm not a baker. I was like,
me neither.
You know what? The peanut butter would have just made it sweet enough. Why in the world did I? Or adding berries. Berries. This could be like the new super cookie food.
Definitely.
You don't even need to add the sugar.
Yeah.
All right. This has been great. I appreciate this so much. I loved this conversation. I really enjoy speaking with you. And your book, hold it up one more time, part memoir, part cookbook, part about healthy living in general. Lisa Davis, it's been really great to meet you and to talk to you about this. Okay, you can put the book down now. So they can see your face.
And it's really reasonable. I mean, it's hardcover, it's beautiful. I'm just really proud of it. And I think what makes it special, I think the most, is the memoirs portion, because I don't really see that, and obviously I shared that I texted my daughter's boyfriend. So obviously
Yeah, I have to really say that when women tell their stories, their personal stories, it is not just helpful and healing and informative to others. It's helpful and healing for yourself.
Right.
So I really encourage storytelling as part of the healing process. And I think.
Are there any other questions or anything, or do we have time before we go?
Oh, there's a question. Yeah, look at that. Sorry, I'm slacking.
No, that's okay. I thought I just.
What about milk products and yogurt for smoothies? It's the dairy question. What about that?
I personally am not big on dairy. I don't believe that it does a body good, but I think that if it works for you and you're feeling all right, There is a tie if you have teens, or even if you're breaking out yourself, there actually is a tie between dairy and acne. And this actually comes from mainstream dermatologists too, which I thought was pretty cool, because usually you hear that like from a naturopath or a holistic physician, but yeah, there's actually studies. Dairy can also be hard on a lot of people who are lactose intolerant. I'm not a fan, but again, if people have dairy in the house and that's something that they feel like they're not feeling ill from it, or it's also highly allergenic, I think it goes great in smoothies. If you can, there's so many great alternative milks out there. I mean, there's nut milks. If you're allergic to nuts, there's coconut milk, there's soy milk, there's
rice milk,
there's rice milk, and they're all fortified. So I would definitely look at that as well.
Well, I have heard though, and I am not an expert, I have heard that yogurt, like a well-made yogurt, no added sugars, the fermentation of that type of dairy product. And I usually eat just plain yogurt. And I have a friend who made yogurt for me when I used to live in Arizona. She would make it in her crock pot, and it's just really milk. And I don't know what else the magic ingredient is, but so delicious. Bulgarian yogurt is another.
That's a good point. I should have mentioned that. My husband does. He eats, because I'm sensitive to dairy. He eats yogurt, but it's the what is it called? The Greek, the thicker.
Paille is one.
There's some different types. The other thing too, and again, it's more expensive, but I tell people if they're going to do dairy, you should really get grass fed.
Yeah.
Same meat, so maybe eat less
organic, grass fed. Yeah, everything in moderation for sure. But I have heard that yogurt as a dairy product
is better than
fermentation is better and more easily tolerated, even by people who do tend to be lactose intolerant.
Right.
Listen to your body.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And we don't. We're always so like, blah, 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 we got to do this, we got to do that. That we don't slow down and go, wow, I just ate that meal and I feel terrible.
Right.
And some of it is the quantity, but a lot of it is the quality or the lack thereof. So listen to our bodies.
Yes.
Trust your body.
Yes.
All right. Now it's time to say goodbye.
Can you share my website?
Please tell us where we can find you. Thank you so much. I can't believe I forgot that, because I'm normally and how can we find you?
Yeah, well, I have it's kind of new, a few months, and I love it. It's so easy. It's just lisadavismph.com, www.lisadavismph.com. You can find my podcast, Talk Healthy Today. I do that with AIM Media. They do Clean Eating Magazine, Vegetarian Times, Yoga Journal, and a bunch of others. And then I do Naturally Savvy with Andrea Donsky. And Talk Healthy Today covers more health topics, from mental health to sexual health, to physical health, to nutrition, fitness. And then Natural Savvy is more just like on natural living and some more of like spiritual stuff. And it's really good. Both of them I'm really proud of. They're really good podcasts. So, and you came on Talk Healthy Today, and you're going to go on Naturally Savvy too. So that'll be fun.
Yay. I love podcasts. I love these conversations. I love the video conversations. It's so much fun.
I need to do this.
I'm really grateful that you took the time. We found each other on Twitter, and that is an amazing thing as well. So you're on Twitter, obviously. And
at Lisa Davis. Everything is at Lisa Davis MPH.
Okay. And I'm at Aliza Sherman on Twitter, my full name spelled out. And you can find a lot of the upcoming Ellementa events at ellementa.com/events. Pretty easy. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. I can't wait to see your CBD one. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, let me show my props.
Yeah, show again. And those look natural. I've used one of these. Looked familiar. I think it was the green and brown one, as I'm pointing at. I can't wait.
Yeah,
on Wednesday.
This is on Wednesday, the 5th of May. So if you're watching this live right now, mark your calendar this Wednesday. I'm going to be talking about all these CBD topicals. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.